favorite chef out of my entire time at the CIA, and he was really smart, and he was writing a curriculum for a class over at Cornell, because they had the Cornell CIA crossover situation, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But I didn't take advantage of that. But
heard that. How long is the program there at the CIA?
At CIA, if you do associates, it can be as short as a little under 2 years.
Okay.
And that's what I did.
Okay.
But if you add in your externship, it technically comes out to like a 2-year program.
Got you. What was your internship?
I interned at Blue Hill at Stone Barns.
Okay. How did you pick that place?
You know, I really don't know. At first, I was so interested in coming out and working in California, and I didn't have a real reason why. I really wanted to move to San Francisco, and it was just like this pull for no reason.
Yeah.
And I was looking into all of these like very fucking antiquated restaurants, actually. I will not now list those restaurants, because that is an offensive thing to say.
No worries.
But so I was just really interested in living in San Francisco. Quickly realized that it was completely unrealistic as far as living, cost of living. It was outrageous. And then I just really started doing a bigger deep dive into the restaurants that were in New York. I was like, I'm so close to this culinary mecca. I haven't had a chance to explore it at all. And I was just like, New York City, New York City, New York City. Really wanted to work there. But I didn't find a restaurant that really called out to me in any way. And I was talking to my classmates about it. And luckily, I had a great fellow classmate who was like, I did a quick stage at Blue Hill before I came to culinary school. Ian Cairns. Great recommendation. I absolutely loved my internship at Blue Hill, and I went back after I graduated. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So how long is the internship? Is it like 6 months?
It only needs to be 4 months.
Gotcha.
Or so. And I stayed a little bit longer just because I was really enjoying my time there, and I felt like I was learning a lot. I think I stayed a total of 5 months.
Gotcha.
So I started with a certain group of students, which I was really fortunate to start out with because we started in January, so I didn't start out with necessarily all the other 18-year-olds. So it wasn't like a party school situation for me.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's a lot better than me, and I have to catch up.
Got you. Okay.
So I was able to take it very seriously very early.
Heard.
And because I stayed longer in my internship, I came back and I started with a different group, which was great for a different reason. I was able to mix it up and have an entirely different group to learn with.
Right. Okay. So what was the setup at Blue Hill? Just because I'm familiar with the restaurant, but not so much the history of it. Like with renovations, you know what happens when you get the new kitchen. Like it's always like, did you work in the old kitchen or the new kitchen? Was there any of that? Like,
no.
Did they have 3 Michelin stars at the time?
No. So
okay.
Michelin Guide wasn't out in any part of New York other than New York City up until I think 2 years ago. So So Blue Hill got 2 Michelin. Blue Hill at Stone Barns got 2 Michelin stars. I believe it was 2 years ago. It might be a little longer than that.
Yeah.
But so when I was there was no stars.
Okay.
No Michelin stars. It wasn't about that.
Was he already starting that program, the Row 7? Like, was all that in place?
Row 7 did not exist yet, but I definitely believe that brainchild was there. So
yeah, it's
really impressive the relationship that Dan and everyone at Blue Hill has been able to make with plant breeders. So they had this great relationship with, again, Cornell University, including some really noted professors, one of which is Michael Mazurek, who is a cucurbit breeder. And he developed a lot of the varieties that are part of Row 7 today.
Gotcha.
So the Badger Flame... Oh, wait, no. All right. We're going to take that part out.
Okay, heard.
The salt and pepper cucumber. the 898 squash, which turned into the Honey Nut squash, which is now in Whole Foods across the fucking
it's literally everywhere.
Yeah, but the year that I started working there, the 898 squash, 898 squash, 898 squash. And it was just like the it vegetable.
Yeah, it still is. I mean...
it is. But it was so fucking cool.
Yeah.
Because we were literally, like, we would it was a really cool restaurant because we'd meet as a whole team every day. Whole culinary team every day. And you'd hear Dan just be like, you know what? It was between us getting this vegetable and Stouffer's. Like Stouffer's.
Yeah.
the microwavable meals. And he's just like, I convinced Mike to give it to us instead.
I will be damned.
And it's wild.
If Stouffer's gets the honey nut.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
What would they have done with it? Crushed it up and put it on their pizzas?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Come on.
Some seeds and all?
Sweet potato pie, except for with butternut squash.
Oh, my
Honey nut squash.
goodness.
Never would have even heard of it. Never would have even heard of it, I bet. You know,
that's crazy.
They wouldn't have shared that ever. But that was a really, really, really cool part of working at that restaurant. Even when I came back, you know, there were always all of these trials going on. And the farmers at Stone Barn Center, because Stone Barn Center and Blue Hill are two different entities, but they're both owned by the Rockefellers. So they work together. It's essentially like this farm and restaurant situation was Peggy Rockefeller's dream, and they just made it reality. And they picked Dan Barber because he really fit the bill.
Yeah.
They were like, he's this guy in New York City, and he's just doing the food. That's exactly what we want to do. So it was really cool to work in this kind of environment, and they had this relationship with all these different farms. And, you know, if there was someone that was working at Blue Hill that branched out, or I should say at Stone Barns, and that branched out into a new farm, we were always very quick to support them.
Gotcha.
And I think they're really good about that today still.
Yeah. What were the stations in the kitchen?
Stations. So there was a Amuse-Bouche station, which was a fairly large station because there were quite a few
little bites
to start the meal. It's like 12 when I started, and I think that expanded.
Okay.
Quite a bit. But that was always run mainly by interns, which is super interesting.
Yeah.
Including expediting.
Really?
Unless there was someone, just not someone at that time that could take the lead role, or if they didn't have enough people on the station, then, you know, a sous chef would take that role. But that's the first role that I was able to expedite or have any kind of leadership role in. Yeah, it was incredible training.
Yeah.
And that was as an intern, so it was really fun. And then it was garde manger right next to that, and pastry on the other end of that line. That's all one line together.
Yeah. Opposite
of that is, so fish line and then meat line ran parallel to each other. It was like a series of, if you looked at the kitchen as a whole, it's a series of 4 lines. Very left line, up against the window, is this pastry, garde manger, amuse. This whole situation has changed since then. But this is when I first started. And then the next line is fish. And there was fish, and then there was fish entremet that was closer to the back door. And then parallel to fish, so they'd be facing each other, these 4 cooks. Entremet, fish, and then meat, and the meat entremet.
Gotcha.
These 4 guys would be facing each other directly in the center. All the pots would be in the center, and they'd be able to communicate throughout the night. Because there were a lot of picks that would coincide and stuff.
Yeah.
And then on the 4th line was like a small banquet line.
Right. Okay. Very cool. So did you work all the stations during your first stint?
No. So during my externship, I was only on Amuse and garde manger. And then when I came back and worked there, I did fish entremet, fish for a little while. And then I was on Amuse for expediting for that position that I talked about for quite a while after that.
Got you. So you did your internship, you went back to finish school? Mm-hmm. Was that it? And then you came back to work? Mm-hmm. Was it already discussed that you had the job there before you went back to finish school? Or did you have to reapply?
It wasn't, but it should have. They were all, it kind of, but I didn't really take the hint, and I didn't know that I had a secure job.
Yeah.
So, like, I was getting close to graduating, and I was like, I'm going to set up 2 stages at Blue Hill.
Yeah.
I came back and I stage on 2 different weekends, and Michael Galena, the chef de cuisine at the time, was just like, you really like it here.
Like, we already gave you the job.
But I didn't know.
Yeah.
I wasn't fucking...
And then when you got the job, how long were you there?
I was there for 2 more years. Mm-hmm. So I did like 5 months or so as my externship, and then I came back and worked there for an additional 2 years. Got you.
And as you're coming to the end of your 2 years, what made you make the decision to leave and move on?
A lot of different things. I feel like the restaurant had changed a lot in the time that I had been there. And I felt like I didn't necessarily love all of the changes, but I don't think they were bad changes for the restaurant.
Gotcha.
I just don't think they were great changes for me. Like, it was a much smaller team when I started, and they were really starting to expand the team. And I kind of felt like it was making us not as strong of a core team.
Gotcha.
And this is all from my perspective. Mm-hmm. I think for the restaurant, it made all the sense in the world, especially looking back, because this place was like working in the Wild West. Like, Jesus Christ. They needed a way bigger team.
Yeah.
than what they had. Yeah. I just thought it was super fun because I was losing my shit every day.
Yeah.
You know, it was just fun because it was so hard, so challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's the biggest one. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they also had big goals to get a lot of food running in the dining room via the kitchen team,
right,
which made them require a bigger kitchen team. And I didn't necessarily love running all that food, you know?
Yeah.
I was one of the people that was running a lot of food, and I was just...
You were like, am I a cook or a food runner?
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
At some point.
I can understand that feeling.
At some point, yeah. And I understand why you want me to run a lot of food, but that's... absolutely not what I'm here for, even if I enjoy it.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it was a wild restaurant, though, too. It was very fun. You always had to be super on your toes. The chefs would be able... Every ticket was handwritten in this restaurant. Every ticket in this restaurant was handwritten. And you would literally be in the middle of working a ticket, and your fucking dish that's on back that you've been getting ready for all this time changes. No one tells you, but it changes. And then you just hear broccoli fired, and you're like, that's a 7-minute pick. That's
you're screwed. Chef, yeah. I'm going to need 7 minutes, please.
Yeah, and then the whole restaurant, what?
Yeah.
What? But it was that kind of restaurant, you know, like I feel like Chef Dan in particular needed that kind of chaos and love for people to just be scrambling. And a lot of it was very, very good. Like, a lot of it was very positive scramble, but a lot of it was really unnecessary and just created this super chaotic environment.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the biggest thing that drew me to Tram.
Gotcha.
I was coming from this wild restaurant, and then I come over to Tram, and I was just like, whoa, these guys are doing way less covers, but it is so intense, so quiet, and so controlled, and people will see absolutely anything you do.
Mm-hmm. There's no hiding. Yeah.
And I was just like, this is incredible.
How did you find the restaurant?
So the chef de cuisine of Blue Hill Stone Barns, prior to Chef Bastian, who took over, he's incredibly talented, was a man named Michael Galena. Uh-huh. And he worked for Chef Costa at Campton Place.
Okay.
Way back in the day.
Gotcha.
So Michael Galena came over to New York with Daniel Helm when he came over to take over EMP, and I had all the respect in the world for him.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm gonna leave, but I don't want to settle for anything less. My big goal, and I failed big on this front, I was like, I want to live closer to my family. I want to live closer to my family. I want to work in this restaurant that's just like pushing so hard, doing the coolest food.
Yeah.
I had like this crazy dream list, and he was like, all right, yeah, shut up. But of these